What's up, guys? It's AJM, and this is the Keep It 100 podcast. I'm obviously AJ. And though I am new to the YouTube world, to the podcast world, this is just a podcast on stuff I like, such as music, movies, TV shows, most importantly, sports. As you can probably see, I'm a big UFC fan, big MMA fan, big boxing fan, and maybe a little bit of bare knuckle, but we'll get to that later. I also love basketball. We'll get to more of that in the future, but this podcast is mainly of stuff I like, and I just want to share it with you guys. So let's dive right in. We'll talk about UFC first. This past event was at UFC Greenville. It was last Saturday. And we will go with Chan Sung Jung when he defeated Renato Moicano in 58 seconds in the very first round. Now, what a lot of people don't know is Chan Sung Jung, only the hardcore MMA fans might know, that Jung came off a devastating knockout in a fight that he was winning against one of my favorite fighters, Yair Rodriguez. He was winning the fight 4 rounds to 1, and if it would have lasted at least one more second, literally one more second, he would have walked away with the decision there. So it was just a devastating loss to him. Got caught with a big elbow. It wasn't really a spin elbow. It was more that Yair ducked and then came up with an elbow. And a lot of people call it a lucky punch because he wasn't even looking. But one thing that a lot of people don't know is that he does those in like every single fight. Flashing moves, things like that. Spinning kicks, spinning elbows, wheel kicks, roundhouse kicks. Everything you could think of, this guy does, and that's what makes him one of the most exciting fighters, in the featherweight division. And he could give a lot of featherweights a run for their money, And this fight, Chan Sung Jung, he bounced back very good. He stopped Moicano TKO, caught him very, very nicely. And Moicano's no joke. He's a tough Brazilian. Fought Aldo, even though he lost to Aldo. It was a good stepping stone for him to probably get better and to even get better in the future. So a lot of people thought, hey, Moicano might has a chance. They both were coming off losses, so this was a perfect fight for both men. But Chan Sung Jung just proved, hey, he's a better fighter for being a strong, powerhouse Korean MMA fighter and possibly even a champion someday. We'll see though, and it's just been a rough road for him, and his record don't show it's been rough, but I think he could get a big break soon and possibly fight for that title. We'll see what happens in July when Max fights Frankie. So, big fight. All right. What I think is next for both fighters mainly is, Moicano needs to take a step back. He's lost 2 in a row. I think he should fight maybe no one too high ranked. I'd say probably. This is kind of a tough choice because there's so many good fighters in the division. But I would have to say maybe the winner of Jeremy Stephens and Brian Ortega if they ever fight. But I say Jeremy Stephens. Those guys have true potential to catapult him into the top rank of featherweights. So I think he should fight Jeremy Stephens. It's a good fight for him. Not only is it a good fight for Stephens as well, but it could get him back on track as well after losing to one of Khabib's teammates in early March. So we'll see what happens there. Now for Chan Sung Jung, a lot of people will probably think, he should get a title shot next. But to me, I think he should fight the winner of Brian Ortega and Zabit Magomed-Shapirov. Try saying that 3 times fast. He should fight the winner of that fight because that'll really put him over the top. He's ranked a little high, but, I feel if he gets a win there, there's no argument that he could get a shot at the title. Or maybe even a rematch with Yair Rodriguez. Yair hasn't fought since their fight. So I believe if he gets the nod there into getting a rematch, then he'll really see where he's at, and he could probably prove that their first fight was a fluke if they land up fighting again. So many good fights he could put together just in that division, let alone the whole UFC organization. Now, I just want to talk a little bit about what got me into MMA and UFC. My dad used to fight, he even boxed in the Army, and I used to be not really a fan of it. I was like, UFC, whatever. But then I saw my first ever UFC fight on TV. It was UFC 78, Rashad Evans versus Michael Bisping. And right there I just fell in love with the sport. I watched every single fight on that card, and it was just like, man, this sport is like ridiculously amazing, and some can even say it's better than boxing, but we'll leave that up to the real experts. And basically, I just dove into it, learned everything about it, watched almost every event ever since 2007, and you ask me any fighters, any names, I got you. I can tell you almost anything about that sport. And I just love it because there's so many aspects of martial arts you can really get into. Whether in boxing, you can just kick someone's ass with your fist, where in MMA, you can kick someone's ass with your elbows, fists, knees, heel, anything you can think of. Obviously, you can't do all the illegal street stuff, but still, it's just very, very exciting, and much importantly, better strategizing, and arguably a more horrendous sport to prepare for if you're really thinking about it. And although boxing is longer, MMA is definitely the sport that you want to go to, to get a better cardio, and you just have to focus on more aspects of that for sure, But that doesn't mean I don't love other forms of combat. I love boxing. You can always say, hey, it's the business aspect that ruins boxing, not really the fighting, which is totally true. Boxing is a true sweet science, and might even be more of a science than mixed martial arts, because you're only dealing with the fist, whereas in MMA you deal with the takedowns, the jiu-jitsu, the clinch work, where in boxing they separate each other right when they go to a clinch. And boxing can be a predictable sport, but sports is made to be unpredictable, as you saw with Anthony Joshua and Andy Ruiz. Great fight, man. Finally get a Mexican heavyweight champion. That's awesome. Very happy for him. It was a good fight, and I can't wait for the rematch, so that way we can see what questions can be answered from that first fight. But I'd say the biggest fight that I say we could look forward to in the coming months would have to be Anthony Joshua and Andy Ruiz for sure, but even more than that would be Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder. Now, this is my opinion, hence the name, keep it 100, keep everything 100. Whether you want to say your opinion is better or not, totally up to you. But my opinion, Deontay Wilder did not win that fight, nor was it a draw. You have people saying he won that fight. You can say he won that fight due to the knockdowns and due to everything dealt with it, but he got outboxed, plain and simple. There's no other way about it. Tyson Fury had his number, and he got caught. I kind of saw that coming, him getting hit with big shots. But, man, when he got up with that big uppercut in the 12th round, man, that's something straight out of a movie, straight out of a Rocky movie. And I'm going to quote everyone else, straight out of an Undertaker from WWE. I don't know nothing about WWE, but I'm pretty sure that was that. But that's definitely a fight they have to run back. I also think they should run back Triple G and Canelo as well. I felt Triple G did enough to win both those fights. And it's just a fight that has to happen. There's so many questions that still need to be answered. And they should just run it back one more time to truly prove who's the best in that middleweight division. So, lots to look forward to in the boxing world. MMA, you had Bellator fights. Chael Sonnen and Lyoto Machida. You may have heard Chael Sonnen retired. Had a very great career, although never got that goal of becoming world champion. At one of the times, he was the most popular fighters in the world. He was a very, very outstanding fighter, very good wrestler, did so many things well that you might have thought he was a champion. And you might have thought, hey, he could have got it, and it's true, he could have. But that's just what makes his story pretty sad. But, that's the sport. Sometimes you just don't get it or not. And you may know or not, he was about 3 minutes away from securing that belt when he fought one of the greatest fighters of all time, Anderson Silva, at UFC 117 in August of 2010. He was dominating the whole fight. He rocked him. He put more punishment on Anderson Silva than anyone has ever saw in his career, and just got caught with a nasty triangle at the very end of the fight. 5th round, 3 minutes left. All you had to do was hold on. You could argue he tapped or he did it. Personally, I didn't think it was a tap, but the more I watch it now, 9 years later, I kind of do think it was a tap. But, he had 2 more shots at it and just couldn't get the job done. So it was tough to see him go down like that. But the show must go on. Machida had a good win, good flying knee knockout, put a stop to Chael Sonnen's career, who was one of my favorite fighters, so I could say, damn, sucks that he's retiring. But what can he do there? Rory MacDonald bounced back better than ever in his win. Many people talked about him retiring. I'm glad he did it, but I feel like his championship in Bellator was a little bit marred because he was close to winning one in the UFC. We'll get to that later. But I just feel he could have won one in the UFC and took the easy way out and go to Bellator. And I feel a lot of fighters do that, but hey, Bellator puts on a lot of good fights in their organization, so can't argue there. Alright, we'll switch gears now to bare knuckle fighting championships. Now, personally, I'm a guy that likes a lot of beef in fights. I'm a guy that likes trash talking when fights go deeper than respect. Fights like Jon Jones, Daniel Cormier, Conor McGregor, Nate Diaz, Conor McGregor, Jose Aldo, that truly make you hyped. And you could not know who those 2 fighters are, but when you see a pair of human beings talking smack to each other, oh yeah, you definitely want to see what goes down in that realm of combat sport. So we'll see what happens there. But for me, I wanted to see this fight because of the history these 2 guys have, Artem Lobov and Paulie Malignaggi. Paulie Malignaggi is former 2-division champion, 2-time boxing champion back in the 2000s and 2010s. Formerly retired, but came out of retirement for this fight, and mainly because of Conor McGregor and him when they had beef going on. McGregor, when he was preparing to fight Floyd Mayweather, he wanted to bring Paulie Malignaggi in for a straight-up street fight. Not street fight, boxing fight, there. He wanted to bring him in for a straight-up fight because they were talking smack on the internet a couple months before that. So he just wanted to prove to Malignaggi, hey, coming from the MMA world, I want to prove I can box. Which to me, boxing and MMA is very similar. Every fight starts on the feet. And what many people didn't know is that McGregor is a boxer at heart, not a wrestler. And that's what many boxing analysts got confused. But anyway, that's how the beef got started between McGregor and Malignaggi. And it escalated in April of this year between Artem Lobov, which is Conor McGregor's best friend and training partner. Him and Malignaggi got into a heated altercation the week of Artem's fight against Jason Knight. Malignaggi even slapped him, and it just set off a whole chain reaction of questions. Will these 2 fight, knowing Malignaggi's retired? What will happen if they did fight? So then they booked it not only a month later, and the fight happened last Saturday. Now, you can say Malignaggi won the fight. To me, I think he fabricates a lot of stuff. He fabricated him getting knocked down by McGregor, saying it was a push, but, that's not the here nor there. I think he got knocked down and the brakes beaten off him, but whether or not someone decides to release those tapes of their sparring match, we'll see what happens there. But to me, I think Artem did win the fight, but also my opinion, there's so much controversy around the fight that I feel that there's going to be a rematch. We'll see though, that's a brutal sport. Straight up bare knuckle. Just imagine getting hit once anywhere by a bare knuckle. He makes UFC look like a soft form of combat, but we'll see about that. Like I said, it was a good fight, but I just think that they need to have a rematch, run it back so that way Artem could beat up on Malignaggi again. Malignaggi is a great fighter, but I just think he's too old and he was way out of his league on this one. But it was a good fight, and I feel any fight that brings beef into the aspect and the build-up of the fight, will just make me want to watch it even more. So that explains that. Alright, now for me, I just want to prove how much I love UFC and how much an aspect of a fight can get you riled up on the sport so much that you could follow it for many, many years to come. So I'm going to list my top 5 greatest fights of all time, and a couple of them are title fights, and other are just straight up 3 5-minute round fights that were on main cards. So let's get it going. Number 5 would happen to be Forrest Griffin versus Stephan Bonnar. Now they did have a rematch, but this was the first fight in what many people called the most important fight in the UFC back when the UFC wasn't making that much money. They created a show called The Ultimate Fighter, which had the likes of Forrest Griffin, Stephan Bonnar, Diego Sanchez, Kenny Florian, Chris Lieben, Josh Koscheck, and many, many more. So this fight was number 5 to me just because it was the most important fight, and it definitely lived up to the hype that it needed to catapult the UFC to the level, not only just the UFC, but the entire sport of MMA, because after that you've seen other organizations start to come out of the darkness and really start to take over, such as Pride, Strikeforce, things like that. So this fight, to me, was an important fight for MMA and just the whole MMA community for sure. You had two guys just complete dogs, like going at it, toe to toe. What a real fight should be. Both bloodied, battered, but neither beaten. That, man, people were calling each other like, dude, you need to watch this fight. Two white boys are beating the shit out of each other. Man, it was just a crazy fight. And the more I watch it, I still get goosebumps. So just keep an eye out for it. If you haven't watched it, watch it on YouTube or UFC Fight Pass. Definitely be worth your while. Might even get you into the sport. Number 4, Diego Sanchez versus Gilbert Melendez. This fight was just a regular fight on the undercard of UFC 166, the event where Cain Velasquez and Junior Dos Santos were finishing their trilogy. Diego Sanchez versus Gilbert Melendez was the second fight on the main card, and for all the right reasons. Diego Sanchez, Ultimate Fighter Season 1 winner, fought on the same night as Forrest Griffin and Stephan Bonnar did. And Diego Sanchez even fought for the title a couple times, and just his aura of being Diego Sanchez made you want to tune in. When he fought Gilbert Melendez, who's a big Strikeforce fighter back in the Strikeforce days, was the Strikeforce lightweight champion, and had a good trilogy with KJ Noons and Josh Thompson. Very good fighter. So, and he fought, his first fight in the UFC was a title shot against former champion Benson Henderson. And it was a close fight. I felt Gilbert Melendez won, but he lost by a tough decision, and I feel he won. But that's what put him against Diego Sanchez, which was a fight for all of, like, basically the pride of Mexico. Two Mexicans going at each other, and if you see the last round of that fight, it's something straight out of a movie. Like two Aztec warriors just swinging on each other. Boom, boom. One of the greatest fights you'll ever see, and man, definitely one for the books. Number 3, the fight many people talked about, the 2015 Fight of the Year, Robbie Lawler and Roy MacDonald. It was a rematch of their first fight that they had in 2013, where Roy MacDonald barely edged out a decision win over Roy MacDonald, and it was just such a great fight the second time around. You could easily put it as fight of the century, maybe, but I don't know, it's a little bit too much hype. But in the first 3 rounds, you could see Robbie Lawler completely dictating the fight, even making Roy MacDonald's face looking like straight up hamburger. It was just really good on how much Robbie Lawler improved as a champion, and how he improved as a mixed martial artist. But in the 3rd round, MacDonald hit him with a huge right head kick that stunned Lawler, almost finished the fight. It was that close for Roy MacDonald to finish the fight, and could have done it, but ultimately, like the true champion Robbie Lawler was, edged it out, hit him with a hard straight left to the nose, the bridge of the nose, dropped Roy MacDonald and finished the fight from there. And just the back and forth that they had, and the iconic stare down that they had after the 4th round, is literally like 2 zombies were fighting, it was like truly insane, something also straight out of a movie. And man, if you were in the arena that night, I don't think you could understand the magnitude that that fight had. And you still had Conor McGregor fighting later that night, so it doesn't get much better than that. Number two would have to be Jon Jones versus Alexander Gustafsson. One, as you can see, probably behind me, they had a second fight, which didn't really live up to it, but the first fight between the two was an all-time classic, you know. It was a fight that the UFC found hard to promote because Jon Jones was so dominant, so versatile. Many people thought he couldn't be beat, but Alexander Gustafsson came and proved that he was human because Jon Jones was proving he wasn't. But he proved that there's another level to mixed martial arts where sometimes the underdog has his day. And he went out there and I believe won the fight. He won 3 of the 5 rounds in that fight, but Jon Jones, like true champion he is, he fought through it all. He fought through it very, very wholeheartedly and ultimately eked out a unanimous decision. Could have been a draw, could have been a split decision, I don't know, but that was definitely a fight where you could truly, truly see the heart and determination of both guys because Gustafsson wanted to be the champ and Jon Jones didn't take the fight seriously. You could hear him even say that. He didn't take it seriously at all. And, you know, he just showed the heart of a champion. I respected him more after that fight until all his legal issues happened. But he just proved that he's one of the greatest fighters of all time after that performance, and maybe he can't be beat. We'll see about that on July 6th, though, when he fights Thiago Santos in the main event of UFC 239. And number 1 would have to be Nate Diaz versus Conor McGregor 2, my top 5 all-time greatest fights of all time. Man, where do I begin with this fight? I'd have to say with Nate Diaz calling out McGregor after his win over Michael Johnson because, you know, a lot of people wanted to fight McGregor, but he was number 1, and he's been a household name ever since he won The Ultimate Fighter Season 5. And he called out McGregor in a very explicitive tirade, and a lot of people said, hey, that's a fight that truly has to happen, me personally. So when Rafael Dos Anjos went down in early 2016 with the foot injury, many people were wondering who would replace him because McGregor has that attitude of he'll fight anybody, anytime, anywhere. And the UFC put together Nate Diaz versus him. Well, as you may know, Nate Diaz won that fight in the second round with a rear naked choke. So then, all questions needed to be answered. Who would have won in a rematch? If the fight would have taken place at a higher weight class, which was welterweight. Both men's normal weight classes are lightweight. Who would win if they fought at the same weight? Those questions were answered on August 20th of 2016, and they both put on a performance. McGregor definitely won the first 2 rounds. A lot of people say Diaz won the fight. I don't know. I could be playing favoritism to McGregor because he is my favorite fighter of all time. However, I believe McGregor showed the true heart of a champion. Though it wasn't a championship bout, he proved, hey, he could fight through it and he could battle through all adversities because Diaz was ultimately very, very close to finishing the fight, you know, going through barrages of punches, being dropped 3 times in the fight, and just coming back like a zombie, pummeling McGregor, mauling McGregor in rounds 2 and 3, just really close to finishing the fight. But it was just so back and forth, bloodied, both men. It was just definitely, in my eyes, the greatest fight of all time. And just the beef they had leading up to it, you know, the whole water bottle incident those guys had where they were throwing bottles at each other, like, you don't really see that nowadays in MMA. You see all the respect and stuff. Don't get me wrong, that's cool and all, but that was a fight like Paulie Malignaggi and Artem Lobov where it gets you going and it makes you want to know what happens next in the bad blood aspects. So it was definitely the greatest fight of all time, for sure. Both men had their moments, both men had their sequences of dominance, and ultimately McGregor landed up winning a majority decision. And till this day, we're waiting for their 3rd fight that'll complete their trilogy, hopefully in the near future. So that's how much I love UFC. Now, I want to tell you how much I love basketball. Basketball, to me has been an amazing sport, and I've loved it and been watching it since 2010. Might not seem that long ago, but to me it feels like a long time ago. I want to talk about the NBA Finals. Congrats to the Raptors and congrats to the Warriors for getting their 5th straight finals. Man, they're definitely a great team. I give them all the respect in the world. But I like the underdogs in every single aspect of sports. The underdogs can definitely win at any time, and you saw here. You might say it was shorthanded without Kevin Durant and Klay Thompson, but I feel that this was definitely one that the Raptors deserved to win. But it also showed the importance of Kevin Durant and Klay Thompson. You saw Kevin Durant, he was out for the first 2 games of the series, the first 3 games of the series, and was scheduled to come back in Game 5. However, tore his Achilles. He already had an injury leading up to that, but was completely recovered, the doctors said, and was cleared to play. So he played that night, Game 5, Raptors and Warriors, and just ruptured it even more, pushing off to go and do a move. But leading up to that injury, Kevin Durant just proved how great he was and how big of a difference he made by just dominating. He was making threes, he was doing stuff that he was doing before he was injured, and many people thought, including me, Kevin Durant comes back, the Warriors win that series all day long. But also to me, it just proves maybe they rushed him back too much, too fast. Who knows? A lot of people didn't like how the Warriors handled it, and even me, I felt they should have let the man rest. But when you're desperate like that, desperate times call for desperate measures, and they felt Kevin Durant, could have helped them, and I believe he would have. But ultimately, they kind of ruined his career. He's going to miss the whole next season due to that Achilles injury, and it sucks, but I hope he comes back very hard and very strong. And it also showed the importance of Klay Thompson, these last finals did, because Klay Thompson, man, definitely one of the greatest shooters of all time, right behind the greats of Steph Curry, Larry Bird, Ray Allen, Reggie Miller, all those guys. He's definitely, I believe, deserves to be up there in that conversation, having 37 points in 1 quarter, Game 6 Klay in 2016 against OKC. He just proves how good of a shooter he is time and time again. And to me, he proved his greatness in this finals, sitting out Game 3, it just proved they needed him. Steph Curry always needs Klay Thompson. There's nothing wrong with that, but there's also lines to be drawn on the greatness of players, to me. And Klay Thompson proved in Game 4, he was that man, and he was proven in Game 6 up until he tore his ACL that, hey, this guy could have put them over the top as well. And you see many times he did. And it just sucks because, the Warriors couldn't catch a break, and I feel that we were kind of marved of the finals, that we could have gotten, and we could have had answers to many, many questions. What would happen if Kevin Durant played? What would happen if Klay Thompson didn't get hurt in that 3rd quarter? Would the Warriors have forced a Game 7? Personally, I feel if the Warriors would have ended up winning Game 6, they wouldn't have won in Game 7, even though Toronto's only won 1 game there. That's just my opinion. But congrats to both teams for getting there. And I'll just touch on Steph Curry as well while we're at it. Steph Curry had that monster performance, 47 points in Game 3. But to me, he gassed out. He put all of his efforts into giving them a 2-1 lead. And he gassed out, and that's part of the reason why they lost Game 4. Because, Game 3, he had one of his all-time performances. He had a performance that could have put him in the MVP conversation, say they would have won the finals, the Warriors. But to me, a performance like that, it just proves how his greatness is kind of underappreciated, especially in the eyes of the public. He's 0 for 8 in field goals in the last 20 seconds. And, to me, I feel like he's underappreciated in that aspect in the postseason, but in the regular season, he's one of the greatest of all times, man. That's for sure. And I just feel his impact, say he definitely had Klay Thompson and Kevin Durant, would have been much more stellar. much more enduring and could have won a Finals MVP if they would have won. But we'll find out very, very soon. And just to touch up on the Raptors, for them winning, like I said earlier, I felt they deserved to win. They had the better team. A lot of people thought, if they're going to win, they need Kawhi to have big games. But you clearly saw the guys that took over in all 6 games. You had Pascal Siakam in Game 1 with 32 points. Although they lost Game 2, they had the performances of the rest of their team. Game 3, you had Serge Ibaka, 6 blocks, contributing very, very well. Game 4, Fred VanVleet became one of my favorite players. Kind of like Drake bootleg. Looks just like Drake. But, he contributed to that win as well. Game 4 was a loss, but Kawhi Leonard took over in that fourth quarter. And in Game 5, you had flashes from everybody. Game 6, like I said, flashes from everybody. Kyle Lowry, Pascal Siakam, Serge Ibaka, and Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi Leonard had all of his moments in the finals, but it was mostly the main reason why they won was team. Team is really what wins sports nowadays in any sport. It wins in baseball, football. That's why they're called teams. And I'm saying this mainly for all the coaches out there that think one individual player can get them over the top. No, it's a team. The Raptors showed that because the Warriors have dominant players in every position. But the Raptors shut them all down because of team. Team. Together, everyone achieves more. See what I did there? So that's why they won, and that's why people don't really give LeBron the respect he deserves, because LeBron easily could have won the 2015 NBA Finals and the 2018 NBA Finals. The Cavs could have, if he would have had team as well. It was all LeBron. It was all him scoring most of the points, averaging 36 in 2015 and averaging 27 and 36 in 2018. It's just tough, because he didn't have that team, and I feel we would have had more questions answered if he would have had guys to actually help him. So it's just really tough to see that happen, but hey, we'll see what happens in the future. Now, to me, I want to talk about free agency. KD and Klay Thompson, they're going to be healing up, so they're not really going to play that much next season. Like I said, Kevin Durant's not going to play at all next season. But I just want to give my predictions on where they'll go. Free agency will be next week, June 30th, starting at 6 p.m. I believe KD will probably go to, I'd say the Nets. Because, he wants to, I believe him and Kyrie will go there. Mainly because they want their own team to take over. They don't want to have the asterisks behind their names of them winning the championship. I just feel they're going to go there, like I said, so that way they can win a championship on their own there. Kawhi Leonard, you may have heard he declined his player option and will most likely re-sign with the Raptors. I believe that's a good choice. Why not stay with the team where you won one of the most important championships to you? So I believe he will stay in Toronto. I do believe those rumors. As for Klay Thompson, Kemba Walker, and Jimmy Butler, I believe Klay, even though he might not play that much, I believe he'll go to the Lakers. And mainly because his father played for the Lakers. He was a very known Laker back in the day, back when Showtime was around. I believe he'll go there. I believe he'll fit in very well if he does go there with LeBron, because LeBron plays very good with shooters. I believe Kemba will probably stay in Charlotte, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Lakers also pick him up, because, they need a dynamic point guard after the Lakers traded Lonzo to New Orleans. They truly need someone to help them get the point guard situation back, because I don't think you could wholeheartedly rely on Rondo to lead your team to a championship. Yeah, he's a veteran, but that's why they need someone young, someone fast. And Rondo is fast, but time is kind of catching up to him, and you need that guy that can help you really get over the top and pick you up as a point guard. And Jimmy Butler, I don't believe he's going anywhere. I believe he's staying in Philadelphia. And I kind of think they'll be a troubled basketball team like last year. But we'll see about that next season, which is quite a while away. All right. The NBA awards are tonight. And this is the awards of Rookie of the Year, Most Improved Player, Defensive Player of the Year, and most importantly, the MVP. So I just want to give my predictions on who I believe will win those awards. So we'll start with Rookie of the Year. It's between DeAndre Ayton, Luka Doncic, and Trae Young. To me, I think Luka's going to win. I feel he's had the bigger moments. His numbers don't lie. I believe it's really between him and Trae, but I feel Luka had the more moments and the more daggering parts in the game than Trae did. Trae, though, he is going to be a star in this league. He will probably carry a team and probably win a championship in a couple of years. And I wouldn't be surprised if these guys win All-Stars again this year. So we'll see about that. But I feel Luka will probably take that home. Sixth man, it's between Montrezl Harrell, Domantas Sabonis, and Lou Williams. To me, I have to say it would be Lou Williams, winning another sixth man. Coming from Most Improved Player to Sixth Man of the Year, that just goes to show that, to me, he's the ultimate favorite to win this award because he was a key instrument in coming back 31 points down against the Warriors and getting 2 wins on them in the first round. They didn't win the series, but who was able to come back against a 31-point deficit on one of the greatest teams in the NBA? That's tough, and he was very, very instrumental in that. He scored dynamically. He made the tough shots that needed to be made. And just in the regular season, proving his clutchness and proving how he can prefer to sit down and start with the second unit is truly something special. And he even says, hey, I want to sit down and then come off the bench. And someone who could easily do that as much as he can, I think is a no-brainer. He walks away with that. Now we'll move to Defensive Player of the Year between Giannis, Paul George, and Rudy Gobert. To me, this might sound very cliche, but I think Rudy Gobert is going to win, mainly because of his height. Giannis, he does play great defense, but I feel it's more offense in his arsenal. And Rudy Gobert, one of the best rim protectors in the NBA. So I believe there's no question there that Rudy can definitely walk away with that. Most Improved Player, we got De'Aaron Fox, D'Angelo Russell, and Pascal Siakam. That was kind of a tough choice, because De'Aaron Fox is one of the fastest point guards in the league. And D'Angelo Russell, arguably led the Brooklyn Nets single-handedly to an NBA playoffs. And even though they didn't get the nod and got a gentleman's sweep, I feel he really improved. But I give the award to Pascal Siakam. He's a guy that played for the Raptors. He was very, very big in their first win against the Warriors in Game 1, having 32 points, and was also big in their win against the Warriors in the closeout game, Game 6. So I feel out of those three, and him just winning a championship will definitely get him that award. And finally, the question we've all been waiting for, MVP, between Giannis Antetokounmpo, James Harden, and Paul George. Now, this is tough, and this is definitely based off the regular season. And since it's based off the regular seasons, I'm going to go with James Harden. He went 25 games of averaging 30 points or more. That's unheard of. Even though Giannis was a dominating force, he's just truly... Giannis needs to add more to his game, I feel. He needs to add a jumper. He needs to add a three-point shot. Because he's very vulnerable if you shut down the drive and make him into a jump shooter. Harden, he could do a lot of things. He could do a lot of those things easy. And that's just part of the things why I think he should win. Paul George, he had more lows and highs. And Giannis, he just needs to add more to his game. So I feel Harden runs away with that. Now, if they were basing it off the playoffs, then I'd say Kawhi should win the MVP for the whole playoffs. But since it's regular season, I give it to Harden because both men, Giannis and Harden, they didn't really live up to the hype in the playoffs. They both had meltdown games, meltdown series, and just didn't really catch my attention on why they should win MVP. But like I said, that's why it's regular season, and we'll see what happens tonight. That's at 9 p.m. Eastern time. We'll touch up on the draft a bit right now. No surprise, Zion went number 1 to the Pelicans. I was actually thinking it'd be pretty funny if he didn't, because everyone thought the Knicks were going to get the number 1 draft pick, and I just thought it'd be crazy to say everything went wrong for the Pelicans and the Knicks. But hey, smart by the Pelicans on that. I feel like people need to pump the brakes a bit. He is an outstanding player. I like Zion, but I just feel, this dude hasn't played one NBA game yet. And when he plays in the Summer League, he's going to be playing against, G League players, rookies, players somewhat at the college level. So I feel people are giving him a lot more hype than he deserves. I feel he has to prove in the NBA he can still play like he did in college. And just like Giannis, I feel he needs to basically improve his game more, get a jump shot. Because right now his shot is a set shot. And the only way he's knocking down the three-pointer is if he's wide open. And all I'm saying is if Giannis gets a jumper and if Zion gets a jumper, those two guys can easily be the greatest players we've ever seen. So that's that. I feel John Morant will also be a player to watch. He's going to be a guy that will definitely replace Mike Conley. And he's going to be a dynamic player. I feel it's going to take a couple of years for him to get going. Might hit a couple of bumps in the road. But I say in about 3 years, he'll definitely be an all-star and might even win a playoff series for them. As for RJ Barrett, Zion's friend, I just feel a lot of expectations are very high for him as well. I feel he'll definitely start out slow, or he might even start out fast and then slow. But it's just going to be very interesting to see those three guys, how their impacts are going to be on their new teams. And that leads me into the most underrated player in the draft, which is Carson Edwards. He played for Purdue. He averaged 24.3 points a game, 3.6 rebounds, and 2.9 assists. I feel like he's definitely a dark horse for any team, and I feel like he can truly put his team to the next level and really, really make an impact, and might even be Rookie of the Year. I feel like he's a little shorter version of Trae Young, and I feel he could really make some noise on his team. And now, wrapping up on it, I just want to finish it up. Since I did top 5 greatest fights of all time, I'll do the top 5 greatest finals from 2010 till now. So we'll start with number 5, 2010 NBA Finals, Lakers versus Celtics, the biggest rivalry in basketball, I feel. Just the history those two teams have. One has 17 championships, which is the Celtics. The other has 16, which is the Lakers. And I just feel, it was definitely Kobe Bryant's last run, last championship. Even though he didn't particularly play well in that Game 7, just the whole entirety proved that both those teams, the dynasty of both teams still live on. And just how big of the impact that it had on the NBA and how it impacted Kobe Bryant's legacy. So I definitely put that as number 5. Number 4, I say this year's NBA Finals, because it proved that the underdog can win, because there was so much hype on the Warriors doing this, the Warriors doing that. Can Kevin Durant come back here? Can Klay Thompson have a big game? They basically didn't put any light on the Warriors, the Raptors. And I just feel with the Raptors winning, it kind of shut up a lot of the critics. And although it wasn't at full force, people can put the asterisk around it, but I just feel it's definitely one where a true underdog story, because a lot of people have the Warriors winning. So any underdog story can definitely do that. Number 3 would have to be the Spurs and the Heat, their first go-around in 2013, when LeBron got his second ring and the Heat went back-to-back. That series, is the definition of a great series, because each game was back and forth. Spurs took game 1, Miami took game 2, Spurs took game 3, Miami took game 4, Spurs took game 5, Miami took game 6, and game 6 was probably one of the greatest games I've ever seen, with the Heat coming back down 12 with about 3 minutes remaining. Even the fans in Miami didn't believe in them. They started leaving. And it was funny because they came back, trying to get in the game when, hey, you should stick with your team. But I just feel that game was one of the greatest of all time, because the shot Ray Allen made, nothing but net. Doesn't get much better than that. And that ultimately sealed the deal for Miami into them winning the series that year, because LeBron closed the deal for them in Game 7 and got him his second championship. But to me, it's number 3 because just of the back and forth that those two teams had, and it ultimately set up for their rematch in 2014. Number 2, 2017 NBA Finals, Cavs versus Warriors. To me, I felt that was number 2 because of the whole magnitude of the series. You got Kevin Durant coming from Oklahoma City, and I just feel the whole magnitude and the whole NBA, it was a matchup they wanted to see. It was a matchup many NBA fans expected, and it's a matchup they got. And it was Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green against Kyrie, Kevin Love, and LeBron, most importantly. And I just feel with the history those two teams had already, with the Warriors winning in 2015 with the shorthanded Cleveland Cavaliers, and in 2016 where the Cavs won, coming back from 3-1, it was definitely a good trilogy. If it was a heavyweight fight, it was definitely a good way to end off the trilogy with two of the greatest players in the NBA going at it. And in the end, you just saw that the Warriors were a better team. There was no other way about it. Both teams were healthy. Both teams were at their peak. Before their matchup, both teams went a combined 16-1. And the Warriors were looking to make history that year, becoming the first team in NBA history to not lose a game in the postseason and win it all. But, of course, they did end up winning it all in Game 5. Kevin Durant finally getting his first ring. And it just goes to show that great players and great teams win 100% of the time. And number 1, we'll stick with the Cavs and Warriors theme. Easily 2016 NBA Finals, when the Cavs came back 3-1 against Golden State. Now, to me, I told my friends all the time, if the Cavs have all guys, they beat the Warriors 10 times out of 10, whether it be in 7 games or less. That was just my opinion wholeheartedly, that they got the job done no matter what. And even when they were down 3-1, I still believed, hey, the Cavs got this. LeBron's got this. They could bring it home. And they showed they did. Steph Curry was kind of a shell of himself in those finals, averaging a 37% field goal average in those finals from games 5 all the way through 7. It was just so crazy because 32 teams have tried, 32 teams have failed on coming back from 3-1. And that just goes to show that LeBron is dominant, Kyrie is dominant, that whole team was dominant that year. And it also came to show that 2015 finals was kind of a fluke when Kevin Love and Kyrie went down and it was just LeBron all by himself. And it was just so crazy how the Warriors that same year came back from a 3-1 only to choke it themselves. And it just goes to show it ain't over till it's over. And it could happen only once in a while. It could happen kind of all the time. But it just goes to show you can never count anyone out in sports, no matter what you do. That's it for today, guys. We're wrapping it up there. We'll talk more on the aspect of music and movies later on in the day or tomorrow. Go ahead, like and subscribe. Comment on what you think I should talk about in the near future. I'm AJM. We'll catch you guys later. Thank you.